pain, agony, dropped footballs, the defense, the offense. In a weird way, this might have been the Chiefs' only non-weird game of 2023, because I've seen this one before, and Seth's written about it, so that should make this show easy.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Self-inflicted wounds, shooting yourself in the foot, some execution errors. Just this time, just mixing it up with an elite defense that's doing great work against one of the best offenses in football. What a very normal day at the office. Monday night, in fact. Joshua Brisco and Seth Keysor with you here for Only Weird Games. Nate Taylor will be in momentarily, and sooner rather than later. He's en route to the show. But Seth, we haven't talked about this at all up until the start here. I'm genuinely very interested to get sort of your big picture feeling of how you were feeling when you went to bed last night, how you woke up this morning. Because sometimes that does make a difference for me.
Get out of here. Sorry, I've got a colleague who's
So
being
popular.
obnoxious.
So
Yeah.
popular.
No, it's tough. I'm so popular. People sometimes walk by my office.
I've got a colleague being obnoxious, says Seth, at any given moment, no matter which colleague or which job he's talking about. Like, you do your best work with an obnoxious colleague, I think.
I really do. I thrive. So honestly, last night, man, like the first half, I had like the best game watching experience. My daughter Isabel decided to join me, and she just like, I don't know if she's feeling under the weather or what, because she's 10 now and she's not usually like a lap daughter anymore, but she was. She's like, she's sitting here asking me. Now it was past her bedtime, so I think that probably had something to do with it. That's where she learns to dilly-dally. She's a wonderful dilly-dallier. And so I was like, sure, whatever. So she is like watching the game and asking me all these questions. And so we have this really awesome moment where on the Kelsey touchdown, she saw that he was going to be open and waltz in, and she's like, yes! And I was like, oh, and like just the sheer happiness that filled me was like, Lord, it's too much. Like, hang on. But like, it was a great viewing experience. And you got to see the offense. It wasn't completely firing on all cylinders, but they were moving the ball. They put up 17 points. They had that awesome sequence at the end of the first half where the defense, the defense. The defense, they would have kept doing it. I know we're going to get to this, but the defense would have kept doing it if the offense had provided them any support in the second half. Any support at all. And that's where you see what complementary football looks like, because you cannot give a team as good as the Eagles the ball back over and over and over again and expect them to not eventually break through. So, like, seriously, of the 21 points the Eagles put up, 21, right? Yeah, 21.
Yep.
I put 7 of those on the defense, honestly. Because eventually you're going to give up yards and points to a really great offense. Be that as it may, it was a great viewing experience, but you got that end of half where the defense just has a great series, forces the ball back, and the Chiefs march down the field, get the field goal. You're just like, man, they felt like they were doing whatever they wanted a little bit. And then it just stopped. And it's just so maddening. And so I think I handled it pretty well. And that's what, you know what? I was the problem. I made Isabel go to bed at halftime.
Well, come on, Seth!
Oh man,
the offense was finally fixed, and you sent your daughter to bed.
That just occurred to me. I didn't know why I didn't go get her. Oh, okay. This is that. Okay,
Has
sorry.
she watched a fourth quarter yet this year? Out of curiosity.
No.
Okay, so they had. I think it was in the fourth quarter. I had this pulled up earlier, but I think Pacheco had a fourth quarter touchdown at some point in one of these games. That's the only one.
That was probably she bounced in and was like, oh, Chiefs. and so she's also like undefeated at live viewings. And so, because she's only been to one.
Yeah, so, 1-0.
Yeah, 1-0.
Undefeated.
So I was upset, but I basically had the same opinion that I had after the Lions loss, only even more so. But it doesn't, it helps, but it also 10 games into the season doesn't necessarily help completely the way it did after week 1. What helped me was the same thing that we've had to say to ourselves a few times this year, a few too many times this year, because, they're 7-3. Woe is us. I know it's so tough. It's hard being a Chiefs fan, man. But where I just had to tell myself, okay, they just completely shot themselves in the foot. And everyone will focus on MVS's drop. I mean, that's on the Chief of the North newsletter. There's a giant picture of MVS. I mean, he's holding the ball in both hands. And that was with him not making a terrific play on the ball.
Yep.
Like, that catch didn't even need to be that hard. My wife was like, well, he should have caught that, right? And like, well, the whole deal. There's a picture in my wife's phone of me laying on the floor after that play, because I, like I'm sure many of you listening and watching, went up and yes! No! And how? And I dropped to the ground. Thomas Lester, no, Andrew Wiley's contract's not a good one.
Stop reading the comments. Do the show with me. Do the show with me. Read the comments when Nate
I'm
here.
the man of the people. Okay, fine. You know what? We're gonna click private chat.
Yeah,
there,
that's
guys.
a really helpful
Look what
thing
Josh
to do,
made
so
me
you
do.
can like keep your. Hey, everyone who's commenting, I apologize. Everyone else, you're welcome.
That's true. Yeah, we
will take some comments. I just not
The needs of the
necessarily
many.
4
No.
minutes into the show as you
That's
struggle
fine.
to keep your train of thought.
I'm always struggling to keep my train of thought. Oh,
Do you think any of it's that you're playing Subway Surfers on one phone and reading YouTube comments on the other while you're trying to do a podcast?
That could be part of it.
This,
So
this show has to have great Zoomer appeal because you're one of them.
I'm just that's how I spend my day.
Charting snaps and watching TikTok while he's talking. It's incredible.
Well, like, no, the number of times that I'll like open up a file to do something with it in the day job, and then I like see I got an email. Oh man, I should really take care of that. You know, that reminds me of this other guy. I haven't made an offer yet in that case. And it all gets done. It's just if someone walked in the middle of it, it'd just be like, and so anyway, I just kept thinking to myself, it wasn't just the MVS drop, although obviously I think if MVS catches that, do the Eagles drive back with a minute 40? They had all three of their timeouts. The way Spags was dialing it up, I doubt it, but maybe, you know, they might get a field goal at least. But man, the defense was playing well. They were playing so well. Basically, the Eagles were reduced to hitting variants. Everyone thought they were screens, by the way. They're variants of RPOs. They're part of the run game, and because the Chiefs were showing them heavy fronts, Jeff Schwartz talked about this. He did a great job with it. Because the Chiefs were showing heavy fronts, they were forcing him to click to the pass option. But the problem is the Chiefs' corners close and tackle so well that it just ruined that game plan. It was awesome, really good stuff by Spags there, and he knew it too. Like you talk about playing to this man, he coached such a good game, Josh. So anyway, it wasn't just that. And then obviously the 4th and 25 pass, maybe Mahomes' best throw of this year and last year. And he just didn't catch it. Like, but it wasn't just that. It's Justin Watson breaking inside rather than running in a straight line. It's MVS deciding to spin around rather than tracking the ball over his shoulder. It's other guys not necessarily slowing their routes in the appropriate some of those things happen. Mahomes, you know, he's not exempt, threw a really bad pass. The decision was fine. He had Deshaun Watson. He had Justin Watson running right to left. No one was left. You lead it out in front of him to where he gets it or no one does. Mahomes tried to loft it and just it got away from him. Kelsey, the fumble. Like, talk about a devastatingly bad time fumble. Because that was it. Like, they were going to put the game away. Like, or the drive immediately following halftime. The Eagles had just given up kind of a devastating 3 points, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If 3 points can be devastating. Yeah. They get the ball back and just get destroyed. And they got to punt the ball back. And the Chiefs just can't capitalize. He could have hit Kelsey. He could have checked down. He did neither of those things. And the throw to Kelsey sells. Like, just these self-inflicted errors. There's so many of them. The Eagles are arguably the best team in the NFL. And it took the Chiefs not just shooting themselves in the foot, but what they did was they went out and they found themselves the heaviest truck they could find. Then they loaded it up with a bunch of firewood to where it weighed about 10,000 more pounds. And they just proceeded to put their feet right out in front of them and just back that thing up over their feet and then went forward over the feet, just over and over and over again till their feet resembled flip-flops. That's what it took for the Eagles to beat the Chiefs. I took some comfort from that. The problem is, at a certain point, that becomes who you are.
I don't want to skip so far ahead that we do miss some of the analysis on the things that went wrong, and that we won't have that problem because you've written about some of them. I want to go into more detail, and we'll get Nate in a minute. But the thing that I don't blame Andy Reid for this because it's what he has to say. But I could go the rest of my life without hearing Andy Reid that it's just turnovers, penalties, and they got to get that cleaned up. That they're just a tick off. That they're just, they're so close. Because when you said, I got a big smirk when you said it reminds me of how you felt in week one, it made me smile because, the message out of week one was think about how much better it's going to get when everyone learns how to catch and learns this offense and when Kelsey and Chris Jones are back. And the defense did get better and I almost said it got better, but not much. And that's not true. It got better, but it was so good in week one with the way Spags was in the lab and everything. And now it's better in multiple ways. But and God bless Patrick Mahomes for saying that he should have taken a little bit off on that deep ball to MVS. I mean, look, no, I agree. If he could have just pulled that thing back by about 4 inches, I think it would have truly at that point been perfect for the $11 million a year deep threat or whatever. But who also again seems to struggle with the thing that he does most notably, and the thing that's on the back of his card, and the thing that was on the resume, all of that.
Can I just note to break in, because you know us, we'll probably never circle back to it again.
Yep.
This was based on what happened schematically. This was the MVS game. This was supposed to be the MVS game. This was supposed to be the 2 catches for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns game. That was this game because the Chiefs were running the ball well, and I had a lot of people ask me, why did they stop running the ball as much? Well, I don't know if you noticed the success rate diminished a fair amount in the second half. Still had some success, but not as much, and that's because the Eagles were like, good Lord, these guys are going to run us over. And they did the thing that we've wanted teams to do. Hey, if you just establish the run, that's a term that's abused, but it can matter because if you are gashing a team for 6 or 7 yards a pop, eventually they have to drag a safety up into the box. They have to start running bare fronts. They have to start having their linebackers shoot gaps. They have to start run blitzing. They have to do all these things that make defending the pass harder. And the Eagles were like, okay, I guess we got to bring a safety more into the box. We got to start loading the lineup a little more, which means we're going to have to play man with single high coverage. And that's exactly the deal with the devil that the Bengals tried to make in the AFC Championship game. And MVS burned them for it. And then just this was it. This was his game to where they do the thing. And then MVS burns them for a couple touchdowns. And other teams look at the film and say, crap, we're hosed. We can't do the thing. And now instead what teams are going to look at is say, they can't do the thing when we do the thing. And that's a long-term problem. And that's a problem when you have a 6-year veteran regress from the one thing that he's been consistently above average at his entire career.
And then meanwhile, your other true number 1 wide receiver is also kind of that guy who gets 11 targets, which is just an absolutely astounding number. The most crushing thing within that is something that you laid out in the newsletter that we can, once again, loop around to here in a minute.
Yeah.
But Justin Watson and man, Tucker, if you need to take out your headphones or something, man, I don't want you to have to hear this. But the Justin Watson, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 thing, it was really cute. It was an adorable time that we all had together. It's nonsense. It was a great bit. Tucker, it was a great bit. You and everyone else lesser than that, but you predominantly made it a great bit.
Yeah.
That's it. His resume before he got to Kansas City was Marcus Kemp, essentially. And now Marcus Kemp is your number 1 wide receiver. And it's not just that he was getting targets over Rashee Rice, because Rice was out there quite a bit, but Watson outsnapped the rest of the world. It was a Randy Moss stat line if you only looked at targets. And and there's something kind of frustrating to me now, and maybe it's because I've had some conversations about 4th and 25, but there's something frustrating now about the guy tapping his helmet and saying, you got to swipe the card to get up to the penthouse, not everybody else gets up that high. And then on 4th and 25, just like, oopsies! Like, I got one toe on the ground and my hands are up here. It's a tough catch. I get it, but please make a tough catch.
Well, and Darius
third and short, make a tough catch, and then on fourth and short on your own territory, don't effing punt it. Like this is again where we've had. I don't want to do 10 minutes on this because we've done hours on it before. Andy Reid, get someone else to make that decision for you. Give up 51% of the vote, man. That's brutal.
I've got a great way of characterizing this in a way that I think helps people understand it. And I think a lot of people understand it. If that came off a certain way, I apologize. But a lot of the things that happen in football can be somewhat random or talent-based. There are very few things that you can statistically move the needle in your favor with things that you completely control. And fourth down decisions are one of them. Anything but a punt there. Anything but a punt. Now, I understand, okay, well, what if you kick a field goal miss? For one, I trust Harry Butker, especially this year. That guy's been nails. And for two, your best outcome if you punt is, a coffin corner. How often do coffin corners inside the 3 actually happen? Because if you even inside say you're at the 5-yard line, that's a bummer, but it's not insurmountable. And a good running team, they'll get enough space to be able to punt it back, and you've given up a possession. So the way there are very few ways that in a way that doesn't require significant talent or significant schematic advantage, which requires hundreds and hundreds of hours of study. One of those ways you can gain small edges is correct fourth down decision making. And yes, just because the numbers say in the last 20 years, this was the correct decision 60% of the time, that doesn't mean it's 100% the right call. You still got to look at everything else. And the thing to look at there, for me, is we've put our defense in a bad spot one too many times. This is a really great opponent. Yes, our defense is playing well. But if you trust your defense and your defense is playing well, give your offense a shot and say, hey, we know you guys can stop them at the 45. We know you can do it. And your worst case scenario, if you punt it, other than like them running it back, is exactly what happened, that you gave up a possession. The most important thing in the NFL is possession of the ball. You gave that up for 19 yards. That's gross. And that's where, that's something that they could have controlled. Because even if they'd gone for it and not gotten it, would it take the Eagles 2 plays to make that up?
And I think it was the first play.
and again, I understand the Eagles were getting stopped by and large. But to me, that's also a reason you factor in for being aggressive, because you trust the defense to stop them. So when we trust the defense. Okay, so we trust the defense to stop them even around midfield, right? And so on the other hand, we have this possession, this most valuable thing in football. You should never give up possession unless you really think you have to. And coaches don't view punts as turnovers, but they are. They are as bad as an intercepted Hail Mary, or not even intercepted Hail Mary, an intercepted downfield pass. So that was extremely frustrating. But that was just on a side note, because you were talking about it. On a side note, schematically, Reid once again beat the Eagles. He gave them multiple chances. That was just the biggest thing right there. That was the one thing. It's like, man, Andy, that's one thing. And that's so much easier than undressing a defensive coordinator on national television.
Right. Andy Reid's been sleeping 3 hours a night since 1989. And it's like, hey, coach, there's one thing you just haven't, for whatever reason, your 21 hours of daylight or whatever it is that you're working with here, one thing you have not yet fully taken advantage of,
right,
is that you are giving away free turnovers. You talk about turnovers and penalties. Here's one way you can stop turning the ball over in bad circumstances. It's punting when you shouldn't actually be punting. Seth, let's go ahead and get in your article. Go ahead and set that up for us.
Oh, man, I really thought you were setting me up to go to break.
Oh, no, we only have one break today.
Oh.
Yeah, you're good.
I went into the bed, I was like, I just, so sorry. What I wrote about was kind of
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Come on.
I saw you see me, and I thought, no, no, I can't. Hey, good news, Nate's here.
Oh, good. God.
Hey, I don't know if you were here for what I think has been maybe my most successful bit in the Only Weird Games era, but one way or another, it's good to see it.
Yes, that was fantastic.
Thank
And you couldn't hear me, of course, but I said incredible. Just
I imagine you were like in a horror movie crowd, like watching. No,
I
he's
Seth,
around the corner.
Seth, he's gonna get you. He's only setting you up for further pain. Yeah.
I just don't even understand how that just happened to me. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Nate,
we will
it's
get
good
to your
see
story
you.
very soon. We'll get to your story, Seth, because I do want to dig into some of those particulars. Nate, in the meantime, we have kind of gone through some of the itemized self-inflicted wounds for the 7th show this year, it feels like, despite the fact that I don't think this was their 7th loss, but we've talked about that quite a bit. And I'll tell you what, the post-game audio was real interesting last night. So can you put us in the let's take a step back. I'd like to get a vibe check of Arrowhead at about halftime.
Okay.
And I'd love to know what you thought was going to happen when that MVS ball was hanging in the air. But man, I just imagine that you've probably seen some things.
Yeah, I'll be brief on a few things because I just went through a very deep dive on a topic that I'm sure Chiefs fans are just eager to hear, which is about why are they dropping the football. Now, at halftime, you can make a legitimate argument that that's the best half of football they've played this season, the first half.
Yep.
Because, as I said on Cody and Gold earlier today on 610, that, when you go to the bar, you have an expectations of things. And sometimes you tell, if you're at a nice establishment, you tell the bartender, all right, what's on the top shelf? That's the good stuff, right? I mean, it's sort of eyeing me just as I'm eyeing it because, it's the top of the line. The way I described it was the Chiefs coaching staff, in particular, Andy Reid and Matt Nagy, they didn't go to the top shelf, right? That's reserved for playoff games and wide open touchdowns in the Super Bowl. But they went to the next shelf down, which I think is the highest shelf they're comfortable with for a regular season game of importance. Man, they had a creative run game. They used Kadarius Toney as if he was Deebo Samuel for a few snaps. Pacheco was more involved. I don't know if either one of you all saw the stat that really jumped out to me about, they're trying to win this game. Like they're really trying to make sense of what's going on. But, Kansas City rushed 20 times in the first half. 20 design runs in the first half is the most in a first half in Patrick Mahomes' 104 career starts, including the playoffs. So they did everything that you could have asked for from a play calling standpoint. They actually showed legitimate improvement in short yardage situations. Although, yes, Josh, I understand 4th and 4, I think, is an entirely different discussion. Or was it 4th and 3 in the second half? Before they punted. I have a theory on that.
From the 39-yard line. That's hardcore.
I have a theory on that real quick for later. But honestly, that's the best half of football they've played because they from a defensive standpoint surprised the Eagles so much that the Eagles really had to strip their game plan down.
Yep.
In the second half. And that is one of the best things you can do where the other coaching staff says, man, scrap that, scrap this. I know AJ Brown's upset, but dude, we can't protect the quarterback because they're coming from everywhere and it's loud. And
and oftentimes coming from anywhere still does with 4, which is just a blast.
Yes. Messing up your protection scheme so that you're blocking the opposite direction that they're coming from. I mean, it's a masterclass. And of course, the defense sets up the offense as they've done all season to go touchdown to go back up, by 7. And then we're going to get a stop so that you can get a field goal right before halftime.
It's awesome.
Bing, 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 17-10. That's the best team in football. And all they have to do now is play with a lead. So at halftime, it's probably the high water mark of the season. And then the second half is reality.
No,
ladies and gentlemen.
the high water mark, I would argue, was right after the second half began, and the defense just smothered the Eagles again and forced a punt. Had you told me at that point Chiefs are winning this by 20, I'd have been like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah,
because
sure.
they were doing whatever they wanted, and Spags was just so deep in his bag. I found a great GIF of a guy being hit by a gigantic kitchen sink, and it was hilarious. It was just everyone was doing great. My daughter was happy. I was happy. So anyway, that's the only small correction, because I mean, Arrowhead was freaking out, man. They were just like, oh, here's this team we've been waiting for all year, and that's what it looks like. I'm so sorry. I'm going to let you get back to it, but I think that's what everyone's so frustrated about is with this defense, when the offense is 85, 90% of what it's been the entire Mahomes era, this team is unbeatable. But they haven't been. Like, basically at all. Not for one single full game outside of against the Bears, which, by the way, in hindsight, that Bears domination does look a little better because they've much more closely resembled a pro team since then. Sure. But outside of the Bears game, they have not had an entire game where the offense has played as well as we've seen it play consistently for years. And that's what's so frustrating, because the defense is so good. This is a team that can put 7, 14, 21 on you really quick, because it's score, punt, pick, or whatever. And they're just not doing it. So anyway, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure about the really quick part.
Yeah, that's true. But that's almost more demoralizing.
It's like possible, but quick is, I got a stat that kind of blew my mind. Should I say it now, Josh?
Oh yeah, we're not good at coming back around to things, as Seth and I proved earlier. So yeah, no, let's rip it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Mahomes has a gifted right arm. He's also accurate. He's also a quarterback who's so gifted that he rarely takes sacks and minimizes negative plays, which means you have a chance to go downfield more often than usual, right? Right? Well, anytime Patrick Mahomes has thrown the ball where the ball has traveled 35 yards or more past the line of scrimmage, so 35 or more air yards downfield, a legitimate deep shot play from the world's most talented quarterback, how many completions do you think he has this year in those situations, fellas? And the audience that's watching live. When Patrick 35? Mahomes revs
I bet it's less than that.
And unleashes,
no, I was asking about 35.
I'll say $1. I think Seth went over. Actually,
no, I didn't say. I was asking 35 yards.
I know.
So is that air yards or past the line of scrimmage?
Past the line of scrimmage,
like 2.
$5. Leave me one then. I'm
not thinking of many.
Can't think of one.
The answer is 0. 0. He is 0 for 9 with three interceptions. And he has targeted Marquez Valdez-Scantling the most of those 9 plays. So the quick deep strike ability of the Chiefs is literally non-existent this season, which is why the Eagles, in what was a shock to me and what I think is a shock to the offensive line and the quarterback and perhaps even the coaching staff, although I think from an offensive standpoint, the game plan was excellent. It's more of an execution thing. The Eagles zero blitzed the Chiefs multiple times in the second half, literally daring you that we don't think that guy can beat us deep, and we're sure of it. Actually, the stats tell us it won't happen.
Yep.
And even
by the way, everyone, Nate knows ball because he was not here when I was talking about this with MVS. I just so you know, Nate, I was telling Josh, this was the MVS game. This was the game, just like the AFC Championship, right? They're gonna play cover 0, cover 1. They're gonna leave someone over the top, and all you gotta do is make them pay twice. And they'll stop. Even once.
Yep. Even once. And
they just couldn't do it. Oh gosh.
And so of course, what you notice in those plays is MVS does not fight for the ball. MVS has multiple drops. Remember, the game in Germany against Miami just as much as the drop last night against the Eagles. And the accuracy really hasn't been the problem. So it's either a lack of communication, which is i.e. Justin Watson. And if you can't throw the ball deep, what we learned, and what I mean by like, hey, the first half of that game is the best half of the season. And then the second half of that game is reality. And what everybody needs to acknowledge, and the sooner they do it, I think the better off they'll be. Fans, people in media, and the team itself. They have no margin for error. This is the slimmest margin of error that the Kansas City Chiefs offense has ever had under Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
And he is still playing at an incredibly high rate because he is not getting sacked. He is still the best quarterback at eliminating sacks from the equation, yet you have no margin of error because if you have a fumble, if you have a drop pass, if you have a penalty, it literally stalls every offensive possession in the second half for the last 5 weeks. So why did the Chiefs score their one touchdown in the fourth quarter against the Los Angeles Chargers?
That's right.
The Chargers had a penalty and the Chiefs executed. That's it, kids. So reality has set in. The bye week only improved their short yardage game. But I really believe people aren't understanding. Yes, you can argue that, yes, Marquez Valdez-Scantling has tracking problems. A lot of people have said that in the comments. But what Andy Reid told you and basically told his teammates, or excuse me, told his coaching staff and told his players is, guys, it's 4th and 3, 4th and 4. We're on the plus side of the field. I trust them more than I trust you right now.
Which is still bad logic because you can trust them after an incompletion just as easily as you can trust them after a punt.
True. Right. But that is his logic. I think his logic is I trust my defense. We still have the lead. And I have to trust them over the offense because Justin Watson is wide open. He knows he's going to get hit. The ball is on time. The ball is accurate. And he lets it go through his fingers because he sees 2 defenders closing in because they're in zone coverage, because they're squishing on such routes because you can't throw the ball deep. This is the reality when you don't run the ball on 2nd and 3rd down. Right. Every defense is going to just squeeze and squeeze and squeeze until you prove it, no matter how talented your quarterback is, no matter how accurate he is, because if you're not choosing Travis Kelce in that position, if you're not throwing a swing route to Isaiah Pacheco, the odds have kind of told you that drop by Justin Watson is kind of expected because you have 10 weeks of a sample size. And this is probably the most damning statistic of the 26 drops that are league leading in the NFL this season. 16 have been after halftime.
And I would just note, by the way, 26, if I go by my own charting, because I think I might hold receivers to a little different standard.
It seems like everybody does. For what
every site
has differently. Yes,
every site does things a little bit differently. I'm harder on receivers, and I try to instinctively do that because I try to be hard on Mahomes too, like for like a missed shot or whatever, and that's, you try to kind of combat your own homerism that way. So I would just note 26 might be light because it depends on how they view. Like I'm guessing most sites won't track Justin Watson's 4th and 25 failure as a drop because Darius Slay tried to contest it. But I also look into, and I know it's not technically a drop, but I feel like it plays into it. When you've got 3 yards of space to come forward towards the ball, and that would have prevented the defender from attacking the ball, you got to at least take a step forward. You have to at least come back a little towards the ball, not just stand there and wait and just beg for Slay to come right through you. And so I was gonna, as you were talking about all this, here's the thing that gets frustrating, and maybe this kind of segues into a little bit what I wrote about, I don't know, or more about the vibes, because I really kind of want to actually hear about what things were like in the locker room. I can't imagine people were happy.
Did you hear Travis Kelce's post-game audio?
No.
Yeah, it was
We
quick.
we tried, Seth.
Yeah, they
We
tried.
tried.
He didn't have much to say?
No.
Nope.
Well, and the reality is Kelsey is in a new situation right now. He wins differently than he won 5 years ago. But the way that he wins relies on defenses not completely focusing on him. And that's the secondary problem that gets created when teams are afraid of losing over the top or losing anywhere else on the field, really, which, we can get into that. But like people talk about, well, has Kelsey lost his juice? It's like, I'm not sure he has. But, well, in fact, I don't think he has.
He hasn't lost his juice, but defenses are squeezing him to a pulp.
They are, and I think that affects like things like drops. I think that affects things like fumbles. I think getting beaten up all game and constantly harassed and harried all game, it takes a toll. One thing that I would just note, and this would really lean towards the things that are driving me crazy. It's 3rd and 4. You're on Philly's 39-yard line. You know they're squeezing shallow routes, and your choice is to put Justin Watson in the slot.
Yep.
And have him run a slant.
Yeah,
I alluded earlier. I'm sorry to interrupt to just put a spotlight on this even more. This is what I was mentioning earlier when I said I think there's one thing that you mentioned in your story today that is a bigger systemic issue than Justin Watson drops. It's this. So just like shining a spotlight on this take. Hit us with that one more time, Seth.
So again, it's 3rd and 4. You're on Philly's 39-yard line. You are winning 17-14. You are in control of this game. There is, 9:07 left in the 4th. You score a touchdown on this drive. With the way your defense is playing, it's over. In all likelihood. You even get a field goal. That changes the way they have to play. And I understand Philly scored a touchdown the next drive, but everything changes the way the game script plays out. And your choice, knowing they're squeezing routes shallow underneath, is to put Justin Watson in the slot and have him run a slant. Now, to be fair, he created a little bit of separation, although really it was the coverage that created that separation. The way that coverage works, the corner is going to give up that inside leverage knowing that the linebacker is there. Normally, what you might see is Mahomes start off with his read to his right, to where Kelsey is, to force the linebacker to drift. But because he saw the spacing, he started off with Justin Watson. And here's where the problem is. On the most critical down of the game, your first read is Justin Watson.
Yeah.
That's your go-to guy.
Yep.
And here's the deal. Yes, has Rashee Rice had some bad drops? Yep. So has Kadarius Toney. Would I argue that their drops are more in, man, I think I'm going to be able to get some yak. Those are when those guys are dropping the ball. Tough catches, generally speaking, they've been fine. And that's where they're in trouble, though, is Justin Watson, they're not just giving him snaps like a wide receiver one. They are dialing up looks for him. That's essentially, it's not exactly a two-man look. There's a lot more going on to that play. But that is,
right.
We think they're going to play it this way. There's Kelsey over here. There's our slot guy to the left side. I'm picking which one of them is my first read. Kelsey got open, by the way. But he had the look. He had the look he wanted with Watson, so he threw it there. That's the right call. Could he have maybe put it a little more on his body? Sure. And since Mahomes is out here taking blame for things that aren't his fault, I mean, yes, he could have placed it another foot to the left and down to where it was completely on his stomach. But even then, I mean, he got alligator arms. He got spooked, which again, you're going to get, I rarely agree with Troy Aikman. Actually, I don't even know if that's true. I said something snide, and my daughter was like, "Do you not like him?" I was like, "Ugh, that's a lot to explain." But you
could have made that story a lot shorter by saying, "Well, that doesn't matter," but Josh doesn't like him, and then she would have been immediately on board. I think.
Oh, you know what? Don't even get me started with that. I swear, all things holy. Yeah, Josh is just funny in a different way. You're both really funny. My daughter thinks Josh is just the funniest in the world. Wow. Anyway,
nice to have fans.
So he gets the look he wants, and but it's Justin Watson. He's your first read on the most crucial down of the game. He's running this two-man, essentially a version of a two-man read, essentially. That to me that shows where the Chiefs are at. More so than anything else here. The two things that show where the Chiefs are at right now is that MVS is failing at the thing that he succeeded at most of the time last year. Not even all the time, because they had some missteps last year. And the hope was, with a year in the system, that would go up. But instead, it's gone far in the opposite direction.
It's not even on the grass, Seth.
Yeah, it's
He
not even on the
has
grass anymore.
No deep completions outside of opening night against the Detroit Lions.
Exactly.
0 since week 1.
And that's bad. And so that's the other thing. But I mean, on that 4th and long in week 1, they went to Watson. And that's where they really do believe, for various reasons, he's their guy. And it's not just for, well, this is a very specific type of sight adjustment route. No, it was a slant on 3rd and 4. And that's where my frustration comes into play, because you've got these other guys, you know they're better at other things. Yes, I understand they've got their, it's not like Rashee Rice is going to be this magical fix to everything. He struggles to separate man to man. But so does Justin Watson. And so like that's the whole thing. It's like, he's got these holes in his game. He's not always getting to the right place. Neither is Justin Watson. MVS and Justin Watson aren't getting to the right spots all the time either. And so it's a very frustrating thing, but that more than anything else is like not just the 11 targets. You could maybe explain that away with like a weird coincidence, but 3rd and 4, borderline game on the line here. We want to keep control, and your first read is Justin Watson, and he drops it. This is not Justin Watson's fault. The analogy I made in the Chief of North newsletter, which by the way, this one's unlocked just to make Josh mad. But no, it actually, I think it covers some systemic stuff, so I thought people might want to read it. And didn't want them to have to subscribe to do so, apparently.
That's
so here's the deal. It reminds me of Dan Sorensen in Bob Sutton's and then later Steve Spagnuolo's defenses, where you've got a player who is just being asked to do more than he can. He's being asked to do more. Justin Watson is a perfectly...
He's being asked to do more than any coaching staff has ever asked of him in his 6-year career.
Right. And there's a reason for that. And so that's the biggest source of frustration for me there, is they're not, even in situations where it's nothing mental, where it's nothing whatever, and we've seen what's going to happen with Watson, he'll come up with a clutch play every now and then because he is a viable NFL caliber receiver who should be like a wide receiver 4 at best. And so he can be on the field to do that. So that's the systemic thing. Remember the whole, like from a few weeks back, like Kadarius Toney can't run a slant route. Rashee Rice can't run a slant. You can't put Sky Moore there and have him run a slant. I get they don't trust those guys, but you can't trust Watson, and the ceiling is so much more limited with him.
Go ahead, Josh.
Well, listen,
because then I have a bit that I cannot wait to do because it's a rarity, but I'm gonna give people some free access. But go ahead.
I cannot wait for the bit. All I was going to say is, look, trust issues feel like kind of the name of the game in the Chiefs offense, but I never have any trouble trusting the esteemed Tucker D. Franklin to hop in and tell us about the DraftKings Sportsbook, which I also trust wholeheartedly. Tucker, tell us about DK.
Oh, I trust DraftKings wholeheartedly too, and they trust me to give them money, as there's so much to be thankful for. Family, friends, food, and NFL football all week long. DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping your Thanksgiving week full of action. New customers can bet just $5 on the NFL action and score $150 instantly in bonus bets. No matter your appetite, there's something for you. Money lines, parlays, props, live bets, and so much more. You name it, they've got it. Looking at the early lines for the Chiefs versus the Raiders. Chiefs 8.5-point favorites on the road, over under set at 43.5. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code KCSN. New customers can bet $5 on the NFL Thanksgiving action to score $150 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL with code KCSN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. Please play responsibly. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, must be 21 or older in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms. Back to you, Josh.
Thank you, Tucker. And now for our next bit, we go live to Nate Taylor.
All right, guys. 2 things. First will be the post-game vibes check. Horrid, okay? Horrid, I tell you. Horrid. Let's do some let's walk you all the way through it, kids. In week 1, as I said on this show, those guys chose not to accept the night. The night is about you. The night is about you being the reigning champions. The reason you are playing on this Thursday night is because you won the Super Bowl. Don't you sit there and tell me to my face, last year's last year. That is a bleep show, okay? And Chris Jones is he's sitting right out there, all right? Yeah. Don't tell me it didn't matter, okay? So they lied to us. Fine. Or to me personally, whatever. You know, they're professional athletes. They're grown men. It happens. They win against the New York Jets. And it was also weird because they were like, I think it's the best game Zach Wilson's ever going to play. And you're like, okay, I'll give you credit. Okay, the Rodney Harrison thing happens with Chris Jones. He's like, don't put me in this bad position. Zach Wilson's a good quarterback. Have you seen his college tape? His college tape was so much fun. And that offensive line beat it out of him. Damn. Then you get to the second loss of the season, which is McCole Hartman doing the most accountable thing. I lost us the game. I'm sorry. He's still coughing over there. Donovan Smith is coughing right here. Jawan Taylor's coughing. Like, I messed up, okay? And Patrick will never say it, but, like, he has the flu. It's a problem. You do anything with the flu, okay? So, you know, the defense is like, look, they had 5 turnovers. We tried our best. They were going to beat us at some point. And again, from a human standpoint, you're like, were they looking ahead to Miami? I don't know. But, like, hey, at least that puts more importance on the game. It'll help him refocus, yada, yada, yada. But, like, look, man, he's still coughing, and he got his hand stepped on. And, you know, it's a little troubling that none of you guys wanted to help your quarterback with the flu. But you know what? Y'all was going to lose to the Broncos at some point, right? Right? Okay. Then in Germany, it's like, everybody just talk about the defense. Don't look at us. Look at us. Did you see Ryan Cook? Amazing. Like, incredible. I mean, just we're so happy to be here. We would love to come back to Germany. Did you see the Brian Cook? Did you see what they did to Tyreek Hill? Travis Kelce openly says, this is the best defense I've ever played with, guys. It's the best defense ever, okay? Halfway through the season, there's never been a better defense that I've played on. We're going to go into the bye week. We're going to fix this. And then we know we got the Eagles, and we are going to go like a skyrocket to then have the most horrid post-game locker room of the season. No Marquez Valdez-Scantling. No Kadarius Toney. No Rashee Rice. They didn't even put the rookie out there. Yeah. Not even the rookie could take on some hits. McCole Hartman's like, I mean, I guess I'm here, but I just got here, right? And like, I'm just happy my thumb's not broken. So of course, because it's the Kelce Bowl part 6, Travis Kelce, who does not put on cologne this time. I'll make it very clear. Put on his wife beater. They don't say that anymore. Put on his A shirt. Put on his, that was a nice jacket of the old school Kansas,
Dallas Texans.
Dallas Texans.
Yeah.
Does not put on any cologne. Says, can you give me some space? And look, guys, I'm going to walk you through it, all right? As a reporter, you already know sometimes that, like, we're playing from a probable choice standpoint. So when I asked Travis Kelce, hey, man, anything the Eagles do in the second half that surprised you? I know, legitimately, the answer is they blitzed more. But I also know, realistically, he's going to say no.
Yeah.
Which is going to get to the answer that I think is most important for fans, which is and again, I've covered him for many a years now, many a times, many a situations. I know he's going to say no. I know he's not going to give any credit to the Eagles, and I know he's going to tell the truth, which is put it on me. I shouldn't have fumbled. We got penalty problems. He didn't acknowledge the drops, didn't want to put, Marquez Valdez-Scantling under the bus. That's fine.
Right.
He's trying to be the leader as best he can. But he said, Nate, it's on us. All right. Then he gave like the side look to me, which I was like, all right, I guess we're done here. And then Brad G of the Chiefs was like, no, we actually are done. We're done. Stop asking this man questions. Stop it. Stop. Okay. Are we good? No.
Did anyone ask him?
And then real quick on the dismount, Travis Kelce said something along the lines of, all right, thanks everybody. Like there was a pleasantry at the very end still.
Yeah,
He wasn't.
Yeah,
he
he
wasn't
can't.
too pissed for a pleasantry.
Yeah, but like,
No.
but look, he says it wasn't anything they did; it was all us. And I'm like, you guys need to come to reality. Like, you kind of need to come to reality. But hey, if that's what you want to say. That's what you want to say. I've given you the chance, but I know he's gonna, partially lie to me. I guess is the best way of saying it. But the vibes are awful. I mean, there's less guys in that locker room after last night's game than at any game this season. I mean, usually Justin Reed's available. He talked, but even he was like, I mean, look over there.
What do you want me to say?
Yeah, that's well,
I mean,
and
look
that's
over there.
and let me just to interject. One thing that's interesting is in almost any other team, there would be conversations by now about whether or not you're going to end up with a schism in the locker room with the offense versus the defense. Now, whether or not that's going to happen in Kansas City, like when you've got guys that have been around for a hot minute.
Yes.
And then what? Someone's going to walk up to Patrick Mahomes and say, "Hey, you're not carrying your weight." And he's going to go, "Dude, have you watched any State Farm commercials recently?"
I could have you deleted.
Yeah, like no one's. Now, here's the deal.
Somebody's gonna walk by Travis Kelce in the hall and just kind of throw a little shoulder in him. Oh, hey, sorry, big guy. I just thought I would have seen you on the field if you were here. Like, yeah, right. That's gonna happen.
The Swifties will come for him.
Yeah,
But I would just. That's one advantage to having Andy Reid and to having Mahomes and Kelce.
Yeah.
When you have basically.
Is this why Andy Reid's never wanted to have a good defense?
Yeah. You have basically unassailable resumes, right?
Yeah, right. So there's not a schism yet, Seth. But we're getting to a point of uncomfortableness. Where look, guys, when the guys on defense know y'all haven't scored in 3 weeks, no one has to tell that stat to the defense. They already know it.
Right.
So they're already starting to like bite their tongue and try to be the good soldier and say, hey, it's going to turn around, although it hasn't, in 3 weeks, where we have to all of a sudden be perfect in the second half. You could see it's starting. I don't know if it'll ever get to full on division schism, say a la the Legion of Boom, Seahawks from back in the day, but
Right.
it's starting. Now, the second bit I want to say real quick is, gentlemen, I rarely do this. And ladies, I hope you appreciate this. Would you like for me to read you 2 paragraphs of a story on The Athletic that is yet to be published?
Ooh.
I would adore that.
Okay, kids, here we go. It's 2 paragraphs. Bear with me. Take a deep breath, everybody. Remember,
I'm gonna brace myself in a more. Here, I just want to make sure I'm ready.
Remember, the team you root for has Patrick Mahomes, so we're going to start there.
If this ends with like rumors of a trade demand incoming, I'm gonna end the podcast.
It's not.
Okay.
Here we go. Beyond a lack of concentration from the receivers and Kelce, who has 5 drops, many of the drops have occurred when a pass catcher anticipates getting hit by a defender, often when the opposing defense is in zone coverage, which has happened on 69.6% of Mahomes' attempts this season, according to True Media and Pro Football Focus. Second paragraph. But every practice for the Chiefs starts with the same drill, one that is designed to prepare the receivers for such moments. The drill requires the receivers to execute skills other than speed, quickness, soft hands, and concentration. Each receiver runs a 5-yard hitch route that forces him to come back to the ball between 2 pop-up dummies. Next to both dummies are an assistant, pass game coordinator Joe Blamemeyer and statistical analysis coordinator Mike Frazier, with a pad similar to a pogo stick on their hands, or a pogo stick, or now I'm interjecting here, an American Gladiator stick.
Oh, yeah. Now I get it.
As receiver coach Connor Embry passes the ball to the receiver between the dummies, Blamemeyer and Frazier attempt to dislodge the ball away with their padded stick.
It's a good drill.
I mean, if they got an American Gladiator team here, it sounds like they're going to be amazing.
So if you want to blame the coaches, you can blame the coaches.
Right.
But they do the drill.
Literally this.
They literally do the drill.
Well, and this is where, and what I've tried to share with people. Now, there's some other things, some of the attention to detail type stuff that I'm sure the lab is going to talk about at length. In terms of, Justin Watson breaking inside instead of running a straight line on a go, right? Things like that are just
He just understands the offense.
Purely, completely unforced.
No, you didn't.
Clearly just completely unforced errors that had literally nothing to do with the Eagles defense. Like the Eagles defense could have just literally not been on the field for some of these plays, and it would have been the same result. Like MVS dropping that ball. Eagles defense did nothing there. You see a bunch of unforced errors like that. Now, hey, the peanut punch out from Travis Kelce. Got to respect the peanut punch, but you got to watch out for that. Come on, man. Anyway, so people tend to, in my experience, the first thing that people look to is coaches when they want to blame people for stuff. And that's especially true when you've got a young wide receivers coach. It's his first year doing the job. Here's what I'll tell people, because I've noticed that Connor Embry has become kind of like this punching bag on Twitter. And I think it's just because people actually learned his name, and it's an underperforming position group. And let me just ask folks, name one receiver besides Tyreek Hill over the last 5 years who was better when he left the Chiefs than he was when he started with the Chiefs. Because this idea that they're not developing guys. Most guys don't develop in the NFL. A.J. Brown was who he was when he stepped onto the field. Devontae Smith was who he was when he stepped on the field. Albert Wilson didn't get any better. Demarcus Robinson didn't change at all. Chris Conley didn't change at all. Byron Pringle didn't change at all. McCole Hardman hasn't changed at all. A lot of those guys played under Greg Lewis. Hey, what position did Greg Lewis play in the NFL? Was it wide receiver?
It was receiver.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so, and here's all I'm saying to people. Yes, coaching can certainly be a part of it. A huge part of it, especially if you're seeing details missed, right? Like if you're seeing routes run in slightly wrong spots, or guys not seeming to understand where they need to be. Certain things like that, especially route combination stuff. But to just be wow, drops are a coaching issue. Okay, if dropping the football in the NFL is a coaching issue, what isn't? What is an execution issue? What is on the players? If dropping the football when your job is to catch the football is not on the player, what is? What possibly could be? It's they should coach him not to drop the ball. I think they do. And so that's just, again, that's not me flying to the defense of Connor Embry. For all I know, he's doing a terrible job. I have no idea, but neither do you.
And this is not me flying in to crush him, because I also don't know. But it also, obviously, he wasn't the receivers coach for all of those guys you named who went other places thereafter. So that's one thing that people will mention. But the other thing is, I don't know, other than Tyreek Hill, how many receivers got significantly better with the Chiefs. I mean, that goes to your point of guys don't really develop that much either.
That's how I meant it. By the time they got there to the time they leave.
Once they left.
And some of these guys, people can say, some of these, you're talking a couple fourth-round picks, a second-round pick, a third-round pick. It's not like it was guys that were completely, or, for example, guys that flashed as rookies, like Albert Wilson. And then they just kind of stayed the same guy. Here's my point. It's not that the Chiefs have always been lousy at developing receivers. It's that we drastically overestimate how much normal players, quote-unquote, develop in the NFL. We're talking like a 5% swing. Maybe 10% swing in all but the most unusual cases.
They would have been betting on the most unusual cases for Sky Moore, then, though. In fairness, I mean, they were not. I'm not trying to make a joke about it, but they were not saying he's going to improve by 5 or 10%. It was going to be a second-year jump.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's also remember, I should say, that the most important variable is a pretty constant variable, which is Alex Smith, who actually did get better throughout his tenure with the Chiefs.
Absolutely.
And the world's greatest quarterback.
Yep.
And the head coach, who's going to go in the Hall of Fame, who's won 2 Super Bowls, is also a constant variable in this experiment. So,
yeah, because you've got 2 different GMs.
Great.
If you think it's just a drafting issue, you've got 2 different GMs there.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, Sky Moore has shown more as a rookie than any other receiver in years besides Tyreek Hill. Does he have stuff to work on though? Yes. And that's where I just want to kind of let people know, I think a lot of people really, because most of our experience with sports is at most the high school level. There's not a lot of collegiate athletes out there.
Correct.
There's some, but not a ton.
Right.
And even that is a completely different thing. Like, this is what Kyle Shanahan was talking about when talking about development of players. Like, what NFL coaches and teams spend most of their time on, yeah, they've got certain drills, but most of it is installment. Most of it is scheme related, not developing skills related. There's a reason why, O-line masterminds exists. There's a reason why the pass rush summit and the tight end summit and all that stuff exists. And every quarterback has a private quarterback coach because there's limits to how long they can practice. Mm-hmm. And most of these guys have been drilled on this basic stuff forever. And the coaches count on them to be an adult and work on that stuff.
Yes.
And the reality is, the little differences that you see in players, a 5 or 10% swing is the difference between an average player and a superstar. And it's just worth remembering. Again, Embry might be a terrible coach. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But just saying, wow, this position group is bad. I mean, maybe it's the players. Maybe. I'm not saying it is. We should just at least consider it, because this was foreseeable at the beginning of the season. We talked about this a lot before the season when we said the floor of this room is scary. If Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney doesn't take a big step forward, and one thing we didn't consider was that MVS might take a step back.
Correct.
So the floor got even lower because he was the floor raiser, right? Anyway, I'm sorry, I ranted for a while there. But it's not my defense of Connor Embry. It's my urging of people to not just try to look for the easy button answer and consider all the possibilities.
So one thing you can criticize the coaching staff if you want is that they played 6 receivers at least 16 or more snaps.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And the guys that you're talking about developing are like Western Michigan, SMU, a lifelong special teamer. Like,
and don't forget Richie James back on the active roster. Let's put a seventh receiver into the mix, kids. Let's do that.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Why not? Well, and that's just, you're throwing mud at the wall to see what sticks. It's like, wow, these guys, that's the other thing. There's nothing that can replace live game reps in terms of learning some of this stuff. And some guys, they'll get those live game reps and they'll never develop. McCole Hardman's basically, by the end of his rookie year, he had developed about as much as he has. And that's fine. There's limits. Everyone has limits. We tend to think of the mental side, and I've been hammering on this all season, so I apologize for being redundant. But we hammer all the time on the physical limitations guys have, but there are mental limitations in terms of processing speed and how well you can, your reflexes just have this limit, right? You can only learn to react so quickly until you've maxed out. And not everyone's going to just slope better. And then year 5, they'll max out and stay maxed out for 3 years. And then they start to go downhill. That's just not how this works. And so this was for a foreseeable issue in the receiver room if Moore and Toney didn't pan out.
Now, you might
Seth, I think one of the reasons that your daughter thinks I'm better than you is because I remember your family obligations that you say before the show when you need to be gone by 2 minutes ago. And you can just go if it's time for that. I just don't want you to not be there for a core memory of your beloved son.
I do need to get out of here. And so I will just leave on that
just tell Jazz that I remember sometimes so she doesn't always blame me when you're home late.
That sounds good. I mean,
I just need a couple brownie points.
You and me both know I'm going to lie to her and tell her it was your fault. So I don't even know why you're doing this to yourself.
I'm going to clip it. Hey, somebody clip this. Text it to Jazz. Clip this.
Recorded.
Clip this.
Wait.
Yeah. No, clip's over, dude. Clip's over. Clip is over.
Yep. No, I will leave on that mark that it's complicated. There's multiple factors to it. But last night, one thing that I would say differentiates it from even the Lions game, but especially the Broncos game, while Mahomes had a couple of really bad snaps, overall, I think, I'm gonna be looking at the film, but the snaps that I've reviewed so far, overall, he was quite good. And it wasn't enough. That's concerning, and that's, I think, what sets it apart from some of the other things. So with that, I will let you guys go, and I'll try to find something more cheerful to write about. Oh, no, the actual last thing I'll say, this should have been the Trent McDuffie game, and I feel bad for the kid because this was it. The national audience, him dominating aspects of it, this was his star turn game, and they took it from him. All right, I'll see you guys later.
See you, Zach. You don't have to stick around a whole lot longer, Nate, but on those notes, that the Chiefs defense is so good and it doesn't matter and it's soul crushing. Anyway, we've talked about a bunch of stuff. What else did you have from being out there and what you saw?
So I just thought of this in case people have wondered. Well, Nate, they won the Super Bowl last year, and yeah, they lost to the Colts and they lost to the Bills and they lost to the Bengals. Just from a comparison contrasting standpoint, like just tell me what it was like when they lost. I will do that for you. The things that I remember most about the Colts game is Chris Jones having to say, guys, I can't say what I said, but I said something. That's on me. It's my fault. Nick Bolton saying, man, forget about what Chris said. Like, we still had an opportunity to get off the field, and we didn't. We let Matt Crusty Ryan beat us, okay? And then, of course, Patrick saying, look, we got to get better at short yardage, like really systematically telling you every issue on offense at the time. What I remember most about them losing to the Bills last year was everybody in the locker room saying, okay, you can beat us in October, but we'll see them again. Like, we'll see them again, and you know who's going to be better? Joshua Williams is going to be better. You know who's going to be better? Jalen Watson. He's going to be better because those guys played in that game in loss of Trent McDuffie, who was still coming back from the hamstring injury. And there was a sense from Travis Kelce, who also talked to me that day, Nate, when we have the ball with the lead in the fourth quarter, our job is to finish the game. So what I'm telling you is, in every loss last year, there was more accountability from the players themselves than at any point last night. And what I remember about them losing to the Bengals, and this is where I think Frank Clark gets a bigger impact from my perspective, because again, I was there, I saw everything, but Frank Clark saying, we will not let this happen again. We did not sack Joe Burrow. We will get him, like, if we play them in the playoffs, it will be better. And I showed my toughness and my leadership because I was puking at 2 a.m. and I still chose to play this day. And I don't know what Mike Dana saw on that third down, but you know what? He will not make that mistake again if we get an opportunity. Everybody remembers Justin Reed says, I don't even know who that dude is. And then coach said, come in my office. Don't you ever say anything like critical or bulletin board material of the Bengals ever again. And he's like, yes, sir, coach. But you know what? They picked on Justin Reed the entire game. And Justin Reed, after the game, said, you know what? That's on me. I got to be better. I do know Hayden Hurst's name now. And if I see him again, he will not be a factor. They put the onus on themselves time after time after time last year. And guys, they have 7 games left, and they have yet to be as honest and as accountable with themselves as they were at any point in any loss last year. And that's just the truth. Okay. I don't know if anybody else is going to say that's in the locker room, but I'll say it, from obviously the experience of what happened last year and knowing that much of the same guys, minus Frank Clark, are pretty much on the team. Okay. And you're not asking much out of rookies outside of Rashee Rice. So by virtue, this is kind of the same team with a little bit better depth pieces on defense and obviously 2 different tackles. They have not been honest with themselves in losses this season outside of maybe McCole Hartman saying, I probably shouldn't have caught that punt or attempted to catch that punt. Everything else has been some posturing that they have 7 weeks left to get themselves to believe and to actually become reality. Because right now, and I know the schedule looks a certain way, you got the O'Connells of the world, you got your Brownings of the world. I guess they're going to get Bailey Zappi. Who the hell knows who plays for the New England Patriots?
Monday Night Football. Oof.
I know you're going to get your run-of-the-mill backups. And maybe Jordan Love, I guess he's okay. It's his first year, and he actually looks competent from a skill talent position standpoint. So anyway, the schedule's going to get easier. I think the Super Bowl for the Bills will be when they play the Chiefs on December 10th. They play the Eagles, then they have a bye, then they play the Chiefs, and that might be their make or break season game. So that might be the last game of true importance from the other side, or at least where the team's going to compete and push you. they have an amazing end of the season schedule between, hey, the Bengals might not be in it. The Raiders might not be in it. The Chargers might be wanting to get this dude fired. So it may look a different way between now and whenever their playoff start begins in January. But what I'm saying is they need to have real honest discussion with themselves from a coaching standpoint and a player leadership on down situation, because from my standpoint, this team is still relying on things from the past when every statistic of importance tells you the game is changing, and they have to play football like it's the 90s. You can't go up and down the field thinking you're going to score 30, because look at the results through 10 games. They don't score 30, which means you got to protect the football, stop doing dumb penalties, maybe catch a ball or two, and rely on your defense and hope your defense does enough throughout the course of the season to keep putting you in decent positions to, you would hope, take advantage of more often. I'm not going to say they're lying to themselves, but they're from a team vibe standpoint, from a mood, they are conflicted because they do know how talented they are, and they do know that they're the champions, but they're not quite willing yet to acknowledge that they have real issues that were not the case from last year, and they just have not acknowledged them out loud, whether to me and most likely to themselves, if I had to guess. Does that make sense, Josh?
100% it makes sense. I talked about a very brief version of that towards the beginning with Seth, where it's just sort of like I don't blame Andy Reid for keeping it coach speak at the podium, but I could go the rest of my days happily without ever hearing about how it's just turnovers and penalties and just being a tick off, not even being on. Are they on the wrong page? Are they on the same page with each other, Mahomes and the wide receivers? Man, Andy Reid, I wouldn't say they're on different pages. I'd say they're a tick off. They're a hair off.
Josh, it's Thanksgiving. What are we doing? Coach.
The football is real now. I had a good friend tell me the football is real now.
Yeah. And I saw your tweet, and I obviously appreciated it last night. But Coach, it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Coach, y'all trying to win a Super Bowl.
Just turnovers and penalties, man. Just the same exact thing that came up in week 1.
Coach, I don't know if you know this, but you could criticize somebody.
Yeah.
Pat, I don't know if you know this, but you can dunk on a teammate if that's what's necessary because he dropped a wide open touchdown to win the game. You can say that. You don't have to take the diplomatic route. They've chosen to, but again, they're trying to keep everything in-house, yet in-house hasn't produced great results.
And Seth has something a little bit to this effect in his story too, but like having to come to terms with the fact that this is the group, it's the group they came into the season with, and it's the group that they knew was a problem going through the trade deadline. And I still don't sit here and wish they would have found a way to make it work with Hollywood Brown, because I'm still not sure that's the direction I would have gone. But it just feels like a failing on so many levels, and I'm not going to hold my breath and wait for Patrick Mahomes to criticize a teammate, because
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And I don't know that it happening would fix anything, but it to your exact point, man, what good does it do to go up to the public and stand there at the lectern and say that everything is fine when the backdrop is on fire? Like, we can all see that some things are not fine here. And if the message really is in the building, if it really is like, oh, we'll get better turnover luck, and hey, just don't be so grabby, all right? Okay, team on 3, 1, 2, 3 team. That stinks. And it's hard for me to believe that it would be, I'm oversimplifying even that, but like, it's hard for me to believe that it would on some level be like, let's just stay the course. We don't need to actually make any adjustments. But they came out of the bye. The first 15 had some new stuff in it. And then they got shut out in the second half again.
And not because of play calling, Josh.
No.
Maybe because of a coach's decision on 4th and 3 from the 39
and some
line.
decisions on the situations you're putting certain guys in, perhaps.
Right. But the play calls from a principle standpoint were there. Yeah, they were there. So look, and your quarterback, again, to provide some bit of hope, the quarterback doesn't take sacks. It takes Jawan Taylor getting smoked on the first series for the quarterback to be like, I guess I got to take a sack. But every other time, even when it was Joshua, even when Sweat is chasing him, he still throws the ball away. Now you could say, well, Nate, isn't that equivalent to a sack? Sure, because it's intentional grounding, and he thought he had the arm strength to get the ball to the line of scrimmage outside of the pocket. But I'm telling you guys, he doesn't take sacks. He doesn't. He's not the reason y'all going backwards. Yeah. And I don't know what.
And Creed this team is still going backwards a lot.
Yes. Yeah. Great point. And look at, I don't know what Creed Humphrey did. That's not his fault. Like I don't know. You know, but like for whatever reason, they 10 games is a real sample size, kids, in a 17-game season. And things are going to have to drastically change for their penalties, turnovers, and drop rate to normalize. And I guess subpar opponents can help, but there will be no subpar opponent come January. And that's why last night's game is so troubling.
We will currently planning on doing a show on Friday. Hopefully with all three of us. I'm going to be in tropical Florida. So we'll see how things go there. But the good news is these mics and cameras tend to pack up okay. If Nate can do a show from Germany, I could probably do one from Florida. We'll see. But that's the plan right now, is that we won't have a show on Thursday, being Thanksgiving, but that we will come back around on Friday to preview Chiefs Raiders and to kind of just see how things are going. We haven't even talked about, I mean, we just inferred a lot about the things that the coordinators said at their pressers today. We got early pressers this week, and didn't make me feel any better. So we'll be back on Friday, and we'll kick it around, and we'll see what's changed by then. Most likely not a whole lot. So that'll be exciting. But the Raiders have a new weird head coach and a new weird quarterback, and that's different than the several iterations we've seen against the Raiders for the last several years. And the Spags connection is actually a very cool one in this game. So we'll have some fun storylines to get into, but you're going to have to wait until Friday. So with that being said, Nate, get us out of here.
I want to apologize to Josh Schmaltz and Davis. I know they reached out to hopefully get to meet me in the parking lot. It was rainy. It was windy. I could barely see out of these stinking glasses. I got held up by some other folks who were happy to see me. I thought I got the score right. I thought I got it right, Josh. I said 27-26.
I said 23-21. I thought the Chiefs were going to have a gosh darn offensive explosion.
Yeah, well, 23 was literally their average going into the game.
Yeah.
So, one fun story that did happen, which is a truly Kansas City story, is I'm gonna go see my buddy Anwar Garcia. Anwar Garcia is a good friend of mine. One of the former neighbors I have here in Overland Park. He goes to most Chiefs games. I go and see the tailgate. Participate in certain activities. And all of a sudden, this lady says, I know you. And I'm like, I know you? I mean, ma'am, let's take this slowly. And then Josh, I found out it was Riley Dodd, the sister of Rustin Dodd.
Amazing.
We took a photo. We sent it to Rustin, who I believe is in Michigan right now. But of course, he wrote the amazing book with Mark Dent, Kingdom Quarterback.
I don't have the full copy because it's still in Renee's office, but I have the book jacket.
Yes. And no, I'm not talking about cocaine, white bacon. I wish.
Whoa.
Actually, I don't. I don't need to work with cocaine in my system. That would be.
Hey.
I do the cocaine on bye weeks and Sundays when the team plays on Monday. And let me tell you, that cocaine didn't feel right on Sunday because I'm watching Kenny Pickett and I said, my God, son, can you throw an accurate ball 10 yards downfield? You're going to get him fired. Guess what, kids? He got him fired because his accuracy is ass. Now
I do drugs and Scott Hansen is my dealer.
Yes, and you're telling me Aiden Hutchinson scored? We're back. We're so back. But anyway, there's no cocaine. They're just a lovely group. Eric, everybody else in the lovely tent, and yeah, for the most part, for me and Raleigh to understand that, hey, Rustin's like, why are you with Nate? And why is Nate there? And I said, because it's Kansas City, baby. Everybody know everybody. So at some point, I'm going to meet anyone and everyone in this parking lot before the game. And of course, I said last night that the aroma was immaculate. Immaculate. And then someone said barbecue and weed. And I said, I cannot confirm nor deny. Cannot confirm nor deny. So hopefully this brought a little bit of joy, as after 55 minutes of just outright, they might not win the Super Bowl commentary. But yeah, shout out to Riley Dodd. We took a very blurry photo. It was great. It brought me all the way back to like 2012 when we used to take photos on our flip phones. What were we doing as a society? But yeah, if you haven't yet, buy Kingdom quarterback, ring Kingdom quarterback, make Riley happy, make Rustin happy, and make us happy, because I'm gonna have to watch this O'Connell tape, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Son, why are you throwing in the double coverage when we have... You know what? I'm gonna save it for Thursday or Friday. I'm gonna save it for Friday. But I saw it in real time. We were like, Scott Hansen, let's go to Miami. Why is he throwing it in the double coverage? And that's not Devontae Adams' son. What are you doing? Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. May it be filled with barbecue and weed.
And cocaine.
No.